All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to Boston Indies today. Welcome. My name is Chris Mayer. I'm here from Boston Indies, Boston's home for independent games since 2009. We're going to kick things off with announcements. Anyone has an announcement about a game you made that came out recently? Like, for example, John maybe wants to announce the game that he made. You can come form a line over here. Or if you have any jobs you're hiring for, I don't know, any cool events you're running in the near future that you want to hype up, come on up. And in the meantime, I will announce a couple things. Next month, Boston Indies will be right back here, September 19th. We'll be doing another demo night. It'll be our last one for the year, so if you have a project you've been working on you want to show off, 7 p.m., September 19th, right here. You can find the details at meetup.com/BostonGameDev. We're also still looking for another person to help us sort out like tech issues and streaming and that kind of stuff. So if anyone wants to volunteer their time to help us out, we'd really appreciate it. You can come grab me after the event or message me on the Slack, which is of course at slack.bostongamedev.com, and just get in touch with the chat about it. Where's John going? I just want to shout out a couple of local games that have come out recently that everyone should check out. Whisker Squadron, which Shell Wong, the audio for, came out like 2 days ago or something. Going all right, check that out. And Tectonica, of course, by your local studio Firehose, is out and getting pretty good reviews, pretty good numbers. So shout out to them. Yeah, check those 2 games out. They're both on Steam. And oh yeah, of course, follow Boston Indies on Twitter at Boston Indies, Instagram at Boston Indies, Facebook.com/Boston Indies, slack.bostongamedev.com, meetup.com/BostonGameDev. I'm probably going to put up a Boston Indies website this week, but we'll see if I get to it. And that's it for me. We got a great set of talks, and yeah, thanks for coming. John.
Hello, I'm John Bellini. I work with Yaro Land. You guys want to know Yaro? You must know Yaro.
No one knows them. All right.
I know him.
We launched Million Months Militia on Steam Early Access just Thursday. It was great so far so good. It's interesting to do early access, first time for me. So that's it. Check out the game if you want. That's really all I have.
Hi everyone, how are we doing? My name is Billy Addison. I'm actually an event organizer around the city of Cambridge called Arcade Awesome. So I focus primarily on gaming and anime social experiences. The reason why I'm here, by the way, you should totally follow me on Facebook and Twitter, is because I do events, and I'm actually interested in looking for indie developers that want to showcase their games at Starlight Square, the venue that is kind of hidden away behind H Mart in Central Square. So if anyone is interested, you can reach out to me and we can set something up. To be part of it would not cost you any money at all. It's merely meant to give you exposure, and I would be paying the marketing and coordinating the event. This would be taking place at Starlight Venue in their Opportunity Marketplace, which has a lot of foot traffic. So if you're interested, feel free to talk to me right over there, or you can just shoot me your information on Facebook or Twitter. Again, it's Arcade Awesome on Twitter. My handle is arcade_awesome, and then on Facebook, just Arcade Awesome. You'll know it's me because the profile picture is a picture of an upside down game cart with a smiley face. Dodge.
Hello. I just wanted to share some exciting news. My name is Eleanor. I used to work in Boston, but now I work at Airship Syndicate, and we just released Wayfinder into early access last week. And, it's my first game credit. It's like an MMO light RPG, so if you guys want to go check it out, that would be really cool.
Thank you. All right. I think we're good to go. First up, we're going to have Jake.
Awesome. Well, enthusiasm. Yeah, so I'm going to be going over applying Kanban to game development, and that's, jumping in. So it's a little bit about myself. I was a senior union developer.
Hold the mic closer.
Yeah. I was a senior UV developer at Max Game Studios, and I graduated from what is now CT State Manchester, but when I was there, it was Manchester Community College back in 2019 with an associates in computer game design. I was a founding board member of Game Dev CT, and I founded Closed Mode Games in 2011. And the games I worked on most recently are Mythical Freaks, Haunting Derelict, and Legends of the Golden Age of Chance. And that's my contact info right here. Feel free to email me, follow me on Threads, and Twitter. So, what is Kanban? It's a method used for improving workflows in software development and project management. It incorporates the agile and DevOps practices. It involves real-time communication of capacity, and it involves full transparency of work. And the most common feature of Kanban is Kanban board. So this is a visualization of all of your tasks, and it kind of helps you figure out what state your game is in from a visual standpoint. And there's usually and traditionally there's usually 4 rows. We got to-do list. So this is where tasks that you haven't worked on haven't started yet go. And then when you start working on your task, you move it to in progress. And then when you're done with it, if you're working on, let's say, a shared team, so you can send this off to QA by putting a validate, and then QA will see that, oh, hey, this task is in, this task needs to be tested, let's try it out. And then if they go through it, they can put it in complete. And this can be digital or physical. I've seen people use it on a bulletin board, but it's always a lot better to use it in a visual standpoint. So applications for game development. There isn't anything really unique to game development because it's the same thing. Games are software, so the same techniques that you use in any other software project, you can also use in a game as well. But these are kind of a few key ones that might be useful, that would be very useful. So if you're working with, let's say, a shared team, like I said before, you can have different disciplines like art, QA, design, and engineering. If you have a shared Kanban board with any of these people, you'll be able to see the whole thing. I spent a very long time seeing these in stand-ups. So when I was working at Max, we would just share the screen, and everyone on the team, regardless of the discipline, will be able to see it. So everyone knows what everyone else is working on. Bug tracking, very important, especially in a software environment, especially in a software project. So you want to be able to know what's not working, what's wrong with it, and kind of move from there. So, and then this is very useful. Tasks for specific features. It's always ideal to move a task to sort a task based on a particular feature, so that it just keeps a little more organized. And these are the 3 services that I use in my career. So that's really great. Really great. We've got Yaro, Trello, and my personal favorite, Kanban. These have 3 brands. If we want to try them out, they all use the Kanban board style. All 3 of them are very useful for any scenario, especially Kanban, which is made specifically for game development. So I encourage all of you to try any of these 3. And yeah, that's kind of it. Does anyone have any questions? Any points? All right. Well, thank you for listening, and
This is a talk about how your game makes a first impression. It's a thing worth considering because it does that whether you like it or not. So it's worth putting some thought into it. Obligatory disclaimer off the bat. A bad first impression doesn't mean a bad game. This is also not super focused on hyper casual games. There are a lot of great resources for onboarding for that. And obviously, listen to your playtesters. They're going to give you the best indication where you need to tweak your first impressions. So the first question a lot of people ask when they start playing a game is, what do I do? And games kind of answer that whether you want them to or not. This game is about running and jumping, or run, jumping, and shooting. But sometimes, like, what you do isn't exactly the point. All of these games start with you can move around and look around and interact with things, but you wouldn't say, like, these are all the same game because you do the same things in them. So you might want to really focus on conveying what is this about, not just like in a story sense, but like the gameplay experience you want people to get. So you could say, like, this is a game about running, jumping, and shooting, but also, like, right off the bat introduces some other things. You can do this in, like, I was giving 2D examples, but this works in 3D. Like, this is a game primarily about running and jumping. But one thing to keep in mind is having things that still establish, like, a character, a world, what you want to get across. Portal came after the rise of the FPS, running on an FPS engine in the universe of a famous FPS, at least at the time. But right off the bat, it introduces a main character you interact with and traversing the world. And it doesn't give you anything that looks like a gun for a couple levels, because it's conveying to you, this is not a game about shooting. This is a game about traversing the world. And this can also be where you kind of tell people right off the bat, this game might not be for you. The creator of Antichamber notably said he tried to get it so most people end up at the staircase puzzle pretty early on, because if you don't like that, you probably won't like the rest of the game, because this is a game where the world lies and changes. 999 drops you into your first escape room pretty quickly, so if you're someone who's just there for the visual novel part and you don't want to solve puzzles, you should probably pick up the iOS version that is only the novel. And this is also especially important if you're going to iterate on a mechanic. The world ends with you. Before you even have the ability to attack, throws you into a combat scenario, just because, like, to let you know this is a thing you're going to be dealing with a lot in this game. Although I'm going to circle back to something about Tweewee in a minute. Because sometimes you don't want full interactivity right away. An opening cutscene can do a lot to establish that this isn't just about whatever the gameplay mechanic is. You do want to, like, retain some interactivity or not overstay your welcome, because otherwise you're communicating this is a game about watching movies. But Hellblade, for instance, starts with this, like, slow introduction before it throws you into, like, pretty standard melee combat. And that communicates that this is a game about Senua. It's not just a game about combat. Chibi Robo has RPG mechanics and combat, and all of that gets put off a little bit because it starts off by saying this is a game about Chibo and this family. Portal 2 starts with, like, a character introduction and a whole, like, big cinematic opening to communicate, if you're coming from the first game, this isn't just about puzzles anymore. It's an adventure. It's got more character moments. And even The World Ends With You, despite it very quickly throwing you into that combat encounter, has, like, a really blunt character introduction at the beginning to just let you know, like, we're going to throw, like, this new combat system at you, but this is a game about characters. And then a quick note of what not to do. Like, you can have an opening cutscene, but then, like, you get a feel for the game. Whereas, like, The Wonderful 101, 10 minutes in, you're still getting hit with walls of text. And I'm throwing this out as an example because there is gold in this game that so many people don't get to, because it will literally interrupt an action scene to make you read. And that tells you this isn't a game about action scenes, this is a game about reading, even though that's not the case. It's like when movies used to open with, great movie, but, like, opens with reading before they, like, show don't tell. Also, like, I love this game, but the best introduction to Katamari is having someone throw you into a level and not making you sit through the monologue. And then also, other bad first impressions, pre-everything recently, I really loved the Harry Potter games growing up, but it stuck with me. Chamber of Secrets on consoles, more so than, like, the PC version, had, like, these areas where it's like, these are the ways to go, and that's it. And it's like, the opposite of like a good Metroid experience that's like, this is a game that's not about exploration. I could go into like all the ways this game early on discourages exploration and doesn't make you think it's going to open up later. Skyward Sword gets a lot of flack despite being an excellent Zelda game. All it tells you in the early game is this is a game about following directions. And that was a big thing kind of in the 2000s, 2010s in general. Like, I threw Arkham on here because anyone who's played it knows this is not a game about just a game about following directions. But when there's like everything all over the place is just, you got to do what the game tells you to do, that makes a really bad first impression. That's why this became such a meme. This is a game about following directions. On the other hand, in case I've just, on that last slide, pushed you too far to the other end of the spectrum, you don't want someone to think this is a game about getting lost. Like, these are kind of low-hanging fruit, but like so many people I know played the original Zelda, especially people who didn't grow up in like NES era, didn't immediately go to the first cave and got lost and died, and are like, this is a game about getting lost, as opposed to the impression you want of this is a game about having a fun adventure and killing enemies. And that's why like Breath of the Wild, it got so much praise for striking a great balance between you can kind of get lost a bit, but there's going to be eventually something to nudge you back in the right direction. And it's hitting that balance between you have the freedom to explore, and you're given that right off the bat, but also before you can get so lost that you think the game is about getting lost, something will nudge you in a direction if you need it. And that was a very brief overview. Know what you're about, whether it's story, whether it's a few characters or many characters, or an impersonal world, or a unique mechanic, or an audiovisual experience. Know what you're about, know what you're not about. Reading, watching movies, something that isn't your core mechanic. Put that off a little bit, and strike the perfect balance. And with that, I'll ask, are there any questions? Oh, yeah. Oh, I saw that first. And
What are your suggestions for that?
I mean, if your game is, the question was, what do you do if your game does involve a lot of reading? That kind of goes back to the know what you're about and let people know what you're about off the bat. If it's like, I love visual novels, not everyone loves visual novels. So if your game is about reading, then you kind of, you can communicate off the bat, this is a game about reading. If you don't like it, maybe it's not for you. But if you're a fan of something where there's going to be a lot of text to parse, then like that visual novel fans, people who like word puzzles and things like, I don't know exactly what sort of game you're talking about, but it kind of gets back to that, show what you're about. The don't give a wall of text was more Wonderful 101 isn't a game about reading. And it kind of overshadowed, same with Katamari doesn't look like it's a game about rolling balls and picking things up if all you're doing is, yes, I just get to watch a cutscene where someone talks at me for 10 minutes. Yeah.
So how would you see that as like story?
So something that's story heavy but not text heavy. So it depends what your other mechanics are. A lot of RPGs will open with like a cutscene, but then also have like if your RPG is focused on like combat mechanics, like The World Ends With You, or off the top of my head, like Xenoblade, like you'll usually have like your opening cutscene to introduce your cast of characters, to say it's about these characters, it's about this world, but also like a combat encounter fairly early on to say this is a game about combat and the distinct combat mechanics of this game. If it's navigating the world through puzzles, you probably want to give one of those fairly early on. If you want to say it is primarily about story and not about combat, something like Hellblade isn't exactly an RPG, but that was like the example I used as something that focuses much more on the a sort of interactive cutscene. So you're not fully without player control and just watching a movie, but that pushes off the combat and says this is more about the character. So kind of finding the balance of what everyone's getting out of it. And then also, like I said at the start, listen to your playtesters, see what people are getting out of the opening moments of your game, and if if you went into a combat encounter too early and you don't want players to think this is a combat-focused experience, that's not just RPGs, but also like shooters that try not to be combat-focused is a weird needle to thread. Listen to what your playtesters are feeling they think your game is about from the first 5 minutes, give or take.
All right, sorry, we should probably.
All right. Thank you so much.
Hey everybody, I'm DeLeon of Home Team Game Dev. I want to talk today about online learning that works better for students and teachers. It's a bit about my background, making games since 1997, professionally since 2005, zigzagged between AAA, indie, R&D, and academia. Established perpetual game development practice communities every several years for the past 20 years. Handed off the first 2 10 years ago. All 5 still operate. We've released more than 500 games across the lot of them. Been making my living this way the past 8 years. First 2 groups I ran for free in colleges. Online learning got a terrible rap during COVID. Understandably, it tried to model what works in a classroom. That's not what works online. People were seeking in-person, so of course they're frustrated. That's not what they signed up for. Plus, everyone's stressed. There was a pandemic. But I've been teaching fully online since 2016 and found a format that worked better for teachers and students alike. Now, I love teaching, but I've had a lot of frustrations when I try to find a great teaching role. I find I'm teaching what someone else tells me to teach, how they tell me to teach it. Often it's the way that I'm the best suited person to teach or to approach. I'm often stuck teaching people who don't care that much about it. Their parents wanted them to do it, they weren't enthused, and I'm told where I have to live. Now, I don't blame the teachers, the students, anything. It's a systematic challenge of the existing structures. Our favorite classroom in graduate school, though, worked in a very different way than most classes. We basically showed up and the teacher said, okay, everybody, your Unity game is due at the end of October. If you have questions, I'm here. You have technology, learn how to do stuff online. And that was our favorite. That was the favorite people I talked to at USC, people at Digipin, whether it's their capstone, whether it's their finishing pieces project, whatever. Now the skills for teaching, if the students can teach themselves online, are different than a classroom lecture. Instead, you need to be able to help people when they get stuck. And that gives them confidence to try stuff. It's like having a gem spotter. You'll try more because you know you're not going to get in a dead end. And you talk out plans with someone who knows about the person and cares about them. It's still teaching, it still works, but it's a different format, and it scales very differently. Otherwise, they mostly need us out of their way. We don't want to be having them dependent on us. We don't want to be having them needing us kind of walking through every single thing. That doesn't last the rest of their life. I figured I can take that same format, do it with lower overhead, less bureaucratic stuff in the middle, and it's worked out pretty well for our people. We've got people who've been finally able to make the game that they want to make. We've got people who have been in the game industry for 10 years and still find this is how they're learning and doing the fun stuff on the side that they miss. We've also got people who it helps them in interviews that have this practical, team, hands-on, dynamic stuff. It's different than academic learning. There's nothing wrong with academic learning, but it's a different type of learning that goes on in these environments. And for certain types of skills, it's a good fit. 3 major sections we'll talk about. 4 core features surrounding this, how it's unlike other things you're familiar with, and some tips to start your own. Core features, sustainable remote practice and community, to me, are the 4 ingredients. We'll talk about these one at a time. Sustainable, I volunteered a lot. I've organized about 85 speakers at just volunteer level. Chaired IG Los Angeles in 2020. It was a tough year to do it. But I saw it burn out a lot of good people who want to help. They want to give. That's why they're doing these things, and it burns them out of it. And in the long run, you have fewer people who are out there helping others because they can't sustain it. And again, there's nothing wrong with organizers, nothing wrong with any of that stuff. I am been on both sides of that. But I was putting in a kind of work I couldn't sustain unless I made it my job. So part of sustainability is figuring out how to do this as a business, just as much as you might do freelance tutoring or something else, so you can reinvest dues to provide shared benefits for members in far excess to what they could get out of a free group that didn't have a budget to do stuff for them, connecting them to trainers, material support, whatever you can do with that. Now, among the benefits you have to budget for is you giving your attention sustainably to it. Otherwise, again, you burn out, and it was a nice thing while you could sustain it, but you couldn't keep doing it, which ultimately doesn't serve their interests. Just like when you're running your independent game studios, it does wind up being a real business, so obviously taxes, entity, legal help, contracts, yada yada, y'all get the sense, but basically to sustain it, it's got to be done correctly. Core feature 2, why do I care about remote? Not everyone lives in big cities. I'm so grateful to live in Boston. I was grateful to live in San Francisco and Los Angeles and Pittsburgh and Atlanta. We have these awesome meetups and these often local people. I grew up in St. Joseph, Missouri. I knew no one else who wanted to make video games in the year 2000 in St. Joseph, Missouri. If they were, I couldn't find them. People are lonely because we can't find people who share our deep interests. And again, in big cities, we have the fortune to do that. A lot of people who are a few hours outside of town have a much harder time finding the kind of community we enjoy here. And it helps fit and feels in people's lives, which obviously everybody's lives count as busy. And I want more people to thrive in their deep interests without conflicting with their other life needs. Practice. So to me, it's got to be about learning and growth. The only grade that they need, this part also reduces the burden on the teacher, is they have an authentic audience. They're doing something because they want to be good at it. They want their game to come out nicely. They want their art to look good. They want to show it in their portfolio, to show their friends, their family. I can still give them supportive feedback and corrective feedback, but they're not trying to impress me for 85 to 90%. That's not a part of how this work has to happen. It's not part of that system. It's also okay if someone just wants to enjoy it for practice. Like you might want to practice basketball but have no care to go to the NBA. At this level where it's fitting around the rest of their life, they can just do art because they want to do art. They don't have to be good at art. They don't have to care to get better at it. They can do programming because it's fun to program. Now for us, part of practice has been doing free projects, and not everyone sees it this way. To me, that's been a big element for it. Keeps the pressure low so teammates don't get mad at each other for you're going to tank our sales. Lets people try new things. They can put the first Blender model, the first song, the first code into a project. Avoids misusing the system as sort of like free labor for someone else's sellable project, and it reduces legal overhead. By default, everyone keeps their respective stuff. For community, peers are the point. Whether it's a job, whether it's a college, whether it is living in a big city that we pay a premium for, it's access to people. And so here the gold pins are where we've had projects led from, the blue pins are people contributed to. In many places, they didn't know someone else locally that they could do this with. I'm a strong believer that we form better bonds when we help each other out. When I have your back, when you got stuck and I helped you, when you need a thing done, I helped provide it. I know these people better than I know the neighbors on either side of me in my apartment complex. But those pins aren't all at the same time. And members are split into 3 groups. It's all the same processes, it's all the same materials, with different peers and projects. And the reason why we do that is because it has to be human scale. You can't have 200 and 2,000 people who get to know each other. It's really hard to be the 100th person in a group. 35 to 70 is what we found, where when it gets past that point, you walk into a group of 75 people, you're in a sea of faces, they don't even notice you leave. In a smaller group, you can see a whole your size and say, okay, they need a Blender model. They need someone who's going to be a little better at this way of using C#. And the nice thing about this number 2 is when you grow it up to about 70, you split it, you butt it off into another and keep going. Another reason community helps is it allows lower fee per student than one-on-one. I taught one-on-one for many years, like guitar lessons once a week online through Skype or whatever, and to charge more per hour than went to distributed costs among the community. Also allows more dynamic learning. They can be doing more things that I could coach them through one-on-one. Peer discussion, which they learn a lot through, than they would from just talking to me as sort of the authority on what they're trying to learn. And it lessens dependence on me. Some people have worked with one-on-one, they have a hard time working after I'm no longer there every single hour they're working here. They try it first on their own. They come to me when they need help. We've spent years trying to untangle, explaining how it's unlike other things. People saying, oh, is it like a game jam? Is it like a boot camp? It's like mentor matching or video courses? And no, it has some benefits of all those things. But here I'm trying to get some answers to how it's not like those. And I could easily spend hours talking about this. I put a ton of it on hometeamgamedev.com. That's my example of this stuff. On the process page, if you don't want to memorize that URL. But you got a whole menu of how it's like and unlike these different things. Part of the challenge is overcoming, we get pigeonholed into like, oh, I assume it's like a university but. And it's kind of not. It's sort of its own thing. That's why I'm out here trying to evangelize for I want more people doing this kind of stuff. So some tips to start your own. Basically, you got to build a lighthouse. You have to make yourself findable. So picture who your ideal students are. They could be anywhere in the world. And you have to make it so that they know you're doing what they're looking for. Right? It's on you to light that beacon, raise the flag, whatever metaphor you want, shoot the signal flare. And the way I found that's worked well for me for this, we've got YouTube videos with 10 million views, we've got video courses of 370,000 students. Figure out what would you cover that every person you want to explain to them before you work on their personal custom issues. Whatever technical approach, whatever conceptual approach, and then give that away or make it low cost at scale, but get that in people's hands. Give them a way to try out your approach, figure out if they vibe with your energy, your attitude about it. It also helps filter out people who would just be a bad fit. It doesn't mean they're bad people, it means they should look elsewhere for where it's going to match with them. And what's great is this also acts as a filter then for which people have alignment. And yeah, we're all in Unreal or Pygame or whatever approach makes sense to them. So as part of this, you point out a free email list. You say, hey, if you're interested in people who also work this way, sign up over here. It might take 6 months, might take 1 month, might take 5 years, but you can accumulate up people to then, once you reach critical mass, reach out to them and say, hey everybody, we're starting a group of people who are doing stuff this way. And it keeps kind of feeding itself that way. The best students for me anywhere in the world find me. I have no faculty meetings, I have no grading, I have no repeating lectures. Students and I both have more flexibility in our time and approach. I serve a lot more people than I did teaching in university at Georgia Tech. And it was a lot of work to set up, but I'm living my dream, and I want more teachers and community organizers to do it, but there's more than I can cover in a 10-minute talk. By the way, this also applies to more than games. I'm currently trying to help people set this up for comics creation, digital music, writing workshops, language learning, shared academic interests, a version of our group in a different culture and language. Part I'm also trying to do is realize if it's a project-based thing, if it's something you can learn on your own a little bit online, we can still build communities that support each other. So my timeline is here today in Boston. I'm opening up an application to help people literally for free until the end of the year, trying to help you start this stuff from anything I can advise, share with you, teach you how to do. January, kicking off some of these groups to help advise. Start of summer, developing at scale whatever we learn from the groups we kick off by January. And then a year from now, trying to launch a coalition of organizations like this to trade notes. I'm lonely. I want to find someone else who's doing this kind of thing to say, how'd you solve this problem? How are you approaching this angle? And perhaps we even have a chance to figure out that, you know, my student would love to work on poetry. I hear you run the group for that. Or my student would like to do a C++ SDL game. I don't do that. Let me send them your way. But anyway, join the movement. I'm looking for people who are serious about this, and I will truly help you for free until the end of the year. BraveLighthouse.com has a little link. Just redesign the website here. And you can get my help starting an online learning community by the end of the year, is the hope. That's it for me. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, I'm Chad. I founded Binary Solo with some friends. And today I want to talk about how I made a game on my phone and how it actually works. So I say that, usually the first thing people ask me is, why would you do something like that? The second thing they ask me is, how did you do something like that? And then most people are kind of like, huh? Like, why'd you do that? So I'm going to talk about all of those things today. So this is the game that I made. It's a 3D, 2D card game where you play cards on other people and try to be the last one standing. So you have health, and you, one at a time, first you deal your cards, either to the person on the left or the person on the right. And then you play those cards, and you try to be the last one standing. So, first question is, why did I make a game on my phone? And the answer is because I'm an idiot, because I was jealous of everyone else making sweet games, and because I was too busy to do it on my computer. So I'm sure every single person here has had the same exact dream, where they're like, wow, I feel so unproductive while I'm standing in line, or while I'm waiting on the couch for my wife to sit down and be done with whatever she was doing. Or you're on the train, and you're like, wow, I wish I could be making a game right now. So that was me, and I tried to do it many times, and I couldn't. And then the other thing is I was jealous. Tiny Mass Games had just started up, and people had just made their sweet 3-month game. And I was like, I want to do it, and I don't want to keep waiting, but I have to do all these other things that I'm contracted to make. I'm making this game. I'm working on this for Zynga. So I didn't have time to do it, so I thought if I could do it on my phone, I could do it in my spare time. The one that this game occupies is the spare time. I need the spare time, right? And so this is it. This is the dev machine. You can see I've got the S22 Ultra, which comes with a stylus. That is super important because precision touching the screen is really hard with big fat fingers. I have a carrying case. You can see I'm wearing them right now. You can see how well it works. I have my dev machine with me. And then these are some of my offices that I have been in. So you can work while you're getting breakfast at the counter at the diner, while your daughter is doing gymnastics for an hour and a half, while you're swimming, while you're on vacation, and most importantly, you can do it here. You're on your phone anyways. So to do that, I tried all kinds of things. I tried making my own little Unity editor, since YAML is a format that you can just write. It didn't work out too well. I tried doing C++, but my phone couldn't really handle it. And then I found out that Godot had a build on Android. And I was like, cha-ching, we're in the running. I used Pixel Studio Pro for all the pixel-based art. It's a really great program. Not great if you're not doing pixelated art. It's very focused on it, so you have to kind of finagle it. And then I used a program called Termux to have version control. So you can download this in the Play Store or on F-Droid. You have to do some crazy little setup things beforehand, but you don't have to jailbreak your phone. But you can get it running so that you can make branches and push and do all that cool stuff that you do on your computer, except on a tiny little screen you can't read. So I thought, okay, I got 3 months. I'm gonna do this on my phone in the 5 minutes here and there. I need to make a really simple game. I know I'll do a card game. So it's just 4 cards. I prototyped it at GDC with just a deck of cards. So this is great. It's gonna be really simple, and I'm not gonna go crazy, and I did. I'm also gonna have less assets to make because it's just cards. I won't do something silly like add 3D, which I did. So first up, we have to learn Godot, because we also didn't know it beforehand. So that makes it nice and easy. So if you use Unity, it's really simple. It converts pretty well. There's a hierarchy of nodes. Everything happens. You have game objects, all that good stuff. The only difference is each object can only have 1 script on it, or each component can only have 1 script on it. So you have to make a lot more things in your hierarchy. That's fine. And then I use scriptable objects a lot to do like data-driven stuff. And resources are just like that, except you can touch them at runtime and they don't get dirty and they don't mess you up. So you can just use them. That's great. Should I keep trying to hit the screen? All right, so I thought, okay, I heard that you can do C# in Godot, so my skills will apply right away. It's great. Except that's a special build of Godot, which they don't have on Android. So, okay, there's like a Rust extension that you can use. And I wanted to learn Rust, so I'm like, this is cool. I'm gonna learn something that's a little bit like C++, and you know, I'll jump right into it. Except no, extensions don't work on Android. So we're gonna use the Python-like GD script, and we're gonna learn that. So here you can see my sick dev environment. You've got everything you need. You've got the scene, you've got like your hierarchy, your nodes. At the top, you can switch between the script or seeing the actual game, the camera, and the 2D and 3D. You've got all your files in your file system, and like an inspector type thing where you can change all the properties on things. So this is great. So I go, right, I want to add a new function below that, right? I want to add it right to the bottom. So I click there, get ready to type, and crap. The virtual keyboard covers it up and it doesn't scroll. That's fine. We can work around this somehow. Let's just open up this output tab and have a tiny, tiny, tiny little baby code window so that we can actually see where we're typing. Great. All right. So then also I had to actually learn this, right? So I was still really trying to keep this in spare time. So all I do is just listen to YouTube tutorials, queue up all the things I wanted to learn, and just hit the next one, and that would be the next feature that I would develop. Is I'm like, okay, saving and loading objects. All right, I can save whatever deck of cards the player currently has, because I wasn't stupid and I did not decide to make multiple decks of cards with different functionality. And then boom, game over. All of a sudden, I was super fast, and you can see it also fits in my carrying case right here. Right? There we go. So now we're typing with power. So I was like, my speed increased tenfold. Except like you still have to touch the screen, and it's like kind of far away, so you can't. It doesn't really help that much. All right, so there are some exceptions to this. I said I made the game on my phone. There's a little bit of an asterisk there. Debugging was awful because the screen, the game just takes over the full screen, and you can't do anything except close it in order to get back to Godot. So you have to put a ton of print statements in there and just read them after and hope that whatever mistake you had, you actually managed to hit the print. So I did push to my laptop and do a little bit of debugging there when things were really, really bad. So I wanted this awesome dynamic music system. Garrett Ross was like so excited to do it, and we talked. We had like, when players die, the music changes, the health of the players matter, your health matters, the playing and the dealing phase are different, and all is so smooth and awesome, and he totally delivered. He knocked it out of the park. And then once he did, I found out that FMOD was an extension, so it's not going to work on the Android phone. So that's out. that one I just worked on the laptop and just had a branch, and every time I did anything, I just merged it back in that branch and made a build from there. And this is what it looks like if you try to load with Fmod. You just get nothing, and you can't work. So figured that out. Next is, like I said, I didn't decide to do 3D models, but I did. And those don't import on Android. You can't get 3D models into the game on your phone because it requires an executable to actually do the import process. So again, do that on the laptop. But once you do, you can animate, you can edit, you can do anything you want to the files. You just have to do that first import on your laptop. And then on the other end, the opposite of importing is exporting. Can't make builds. Can't share it with anyone. All you can do is run it by yourself on your Android device. So luckily, we pushed to the laptop, and again, you can build there. Android can't do all the fancy things that the PC or Mac can, so you have to do it that way. Any questions? Jake?
How big is Godot on Android?
How big is Godot on Android? I think the actual application itself is less than 100 megabytes. But it's, you're doing a full project on there. So like I had Termix, I downloaded the whole file system, so every 3D model matting, everything I'm adding is like really eating into that. So that.
Did you experiment with using other Android text editors rather than having to use a tiny Godot window, or did that not work out?
I had a separate text editor. I think I had Shift and another one, and it's really hard because you have to navigate to the correct folder and then like tab back, and the loading doesn't always refresh properly 100% of the time. So you have to reload the project, and that's like it's like a minute. So when you're only got 5 minutes, you kind of have to work with your constraints.
Do you find the frustrations worth it? Like, would you do this again?
I'm about 2 months into the next project. This one is a Game Boy aesthetic RPG, and it is way farther along. So it is way more stuff, and I think I only have like 3 features left, and then it's content time for the next 2 weeks.
How long does it take you on this project?
You asked how long did it take me to set up everything to start, to get going? I started like probably a week before April, so I tried to hit the ground running in April, but I didn't quite. So there's definitely like a lot of Googling, why the heck doesn't this work, or will Android let me do this? Like Android doesn't let you have access to other programs, files, and stuff like that. So you have to do a lot of kind of workarounds there. All right. Thank you. Woo!
I'm Isabelle Colantuonio, and I'm doing a presentation on bridging the connection between gaming programs and industry professionals.
Hold the mic closer.
So before I introduce myself, I wanted to talk a little bit about my presentation goals. So I'm a first-year game design student, so rising second year, and I wanted to analyze the gap between those studying in a game program and those working at gaming companies. There's a really big difference between studying something and practicing it in all fields, but I feel like game design is a really unique opportunity for collaboration and communication, and I feel like this is something that needs to be explored a little bit more on one side. And also understanding what can be changed to mutually benefit both groups and allow more connection between the two. Communication between the two groups will really improve skills on both ends and improve the game industry as a whole. So a little bit about me. I'm a rising sophomore at Leslie University, which is like just down the road, 20 minutes away. And I'm specializing in game art and virtual production. So Berkeley is a really unique program because they had Boston Institute of Arts art program, and they also had Keith Becker's program. So you're getting a fine arts foundation and a game design foundation in the same program, which is really interesting from a game art perspective. I'm able to have that drawing and painting foundation in addition to technical skills. A little bit of a breakdown for what programs I've been learning my first year. The program itself teaches Maya, Unreal Engine, and visual programming in Unreal Engine. I took a Adobe Photoshop class in high school, and I've been teaching myself Blender. I will be learning in the fall. I'll be teaching myself Substance Painter. I'll be learning 3D Max and 2D. So that's a little bit of kind of a background on what I know and kind of what my program has been teaching me so far. So here is like a little bit of an observation of what I've seen happening. There's a really big disconnect between learning game design and game art versus practicing it. Again, as I said, this is really common in all fields, but I feel like game design is a really unique experience and a really unique opportunity. Entering the game industry from a student's perspective is really overwhelming and a little bit scary. And I feel like this is also very common, but there's so many different ways to enter the gaming industry, it makes it a little bit more unique to each person. Also, being rapidly changing technology, everyone has had a really different experience. I know even people a couple years older than me in the same program had learned a completely different program before me was. And even people a year above me have learned a very different version of Unreal Engine. So everyone's having a different experience, everyone's learning different things. And also, gaming programs aren't teaching all of the skills you need. So a lot of students are left to kind of teach themselves additional things, which is definitely a part of the game design education process. But students are kind of left to wonder, what do I have to learn on my own time? What is my university going to teach me? What will help me carry me through? So kind of looking at all these problems and what's happening, what am I currently doing? So I'm currently one of the admin members for Leslie's gaming club called Burtenshaw Club. And we host game jams 2 to 3 a year, and we're also hosting club events, and we're trying to get more workshops together. We're trying to have industry members communicating with students, and we're also trying to get students to participate in events like this. In addition to this, I'm actively participating in events like this and trying to connect with other students and industry professionals, whether they're in my own program or outside of my program. I'm also participating in game jams and working with others studying or practicing game art. This piece is actually from the Magical Girl game jam in the spring. I work with people in a lot of different time zones around the world, so it was my first experience working solely in Discord on a project. And it was a lot of time spent like communicating and staying up late and waking up early to talk to each other and work on this project. But I learned a lot, and this is kind of an experience I want to share with other students. In addition to that, watching industry trends prepare for a future career. This is something that I've been trying to share with the Lynx LAN Club and share with members of it to kind of share what's new in the industry, what should we know, and what should we be aware of. So what can we all collectively do between students and professionals? So one big thing is just bridging the gap, allowing communication and showing the kind of connection between studying and practicing in the field. Another big thing is communication. Events like this are amazing for students to come and hear from industry professionals, but also it benefits both the students because they'll be workplace ready, they'll be able to immerse themselves in an environment that they're a little bit more prepared for, and the industry professionals will be able to work with new employees that kind of have a better sense of what they're doing and are ready to work as a part of these teams and create a stronger game design industry. And how will this benefit the gaming industry and professionals in general? So it'll create career-ready artists and designers who have the skills to communicate, which is a really important skill that isn't taught in all game design programs. New people in these positions who are ready to start working on the project, and game developers who understand the nuances of the career and are able to reflect this in their work. This is something that I've really been focusing on, and something that I'm trying to teach myself and help others learn in my program. And starting this in college, starting early, understanding the work that you're doing and how it affects the market, industry, and other people, and evolving this into the workplace. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. If anyone has any questions, this is a QR code to my link tree, so you can get in contact with me. If anyone would like to come in and talk to the Lynx LAN Club, we're looking for industry professionals, hobbyists, anyone who has any type of gaming experience. We're interested in having people judge game jams, give talks, and just collaborate with us because we really want to grow and interact with people in the industry. Thank you so much.
Okay, good day everyone. My name's Malcolm. I'm a very independent, very solo indie developer. I work on a engine called Bevy, which is written in a language called Rust, and it's in ECS. And there is probably at least one or two people that just groaned internally at hearing Rust and ECS, because those are probably two of the most persistent evangelists you see online if you're terminally online. We're awful. Sorry about that. So, what is Bevy? They call it a refreshingly simple, data-driven game engine built in Rust. It's data-driven with an ECS as its backend. It has 2 and 3D renderers, and it's based on WGPU. WGPU is a Rust upgrade, and it basically implements the Web GPU API and does everything for you on whatever backend you want to throw at it. Vulkan, DX12, Metal, it doesn't care. It'll do it. So, just before we start, even though I love Bevy with all my heart and I love programming in it, I want to set some expectations. Should you make a new commercial game in Bevy? No. It's still very young. Should you make your next indie game in Bevy? Also no. It's very young. Are there games on Steam that use Bevy? Yes, those people are masochists. Should you make your next interesting research / side project / on a phone project in Bevy? Hell yes. So, what do people love about Bevy? And I thought to myself, why not go straight to the source? So, I asked basically the creator and a couple of the senior contributors what they thought you guys should know about Bevy. The creator of Bevy. Now, he puts out a very interesting point, and I think it's one that goes to the heart of what Bevy is, and it's you eat your own dog food a lot, and the entire engine is written using the same techniques that you write Bevy code in. So they don't take shortcuts. How many people here have used Unity docs? Not a lot? Good. How many people have used Unity? Almost all of you. How many of you have used Godot? So, Unity, how many of you know that there's an actual C++ core underneath the C# that you're writing in Unity? About half of you. So, in a game engine like Unity, you have a big angry ball of C++. And the analogy I like to give it's like an angry bear. And Unity, the engine, is sort of like a zookeeper. And the zookeeper gives you a list of things the bear can do, and you basically go and say, I'd like the bear to be able to do this, 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 this. And the zookeeper goes and makes the bear dance. And if the bear refuses to dance, the zookeeper shrugs his shoulders and you're out of luck. Because you can't look into the inside because you're writing in C#. The engine's written in C++. What you going to learn C++ to do the whole thing? Bevy is written in the same Rust, the same systems, the same everything that you will write Bevy games in. So as you write, becoming a Bevy game developer, you're also becoming an engine developer. Because if something goes wrong, you can go into the thing and the code looks like the stuff you just wrote. It's great. So yeah, you don't have a dancing bear, you just have an angry ball of Rust that you have to try and make dance. Alice is one of the fantastic people who does a lot of the integration stuff when it comes to making all of the code into an actual usable engine. She happens to like that it's a high-performance dependency injection framework with decent UI graphics and integration, and that's very useful for things beyond games. And we do have people that actually do things beyond games in Bevy because the ECS is pretty adaptable. Dependency injection, you may not know what those words are, you will pretty soon, and it's pretty freaking cool. The last person was James, and he said that you guys are most likely to make experimental work that break the mold of the other engines, and that ease of enabling disabling parts of the engine and adding your own plugins or ones from the ecosystem is something that you really can't find in any of the engines out there. So I know way back when Unity docs had a thing where if you try to use it, you couldn't use it with, I think it was the PBR plus renderer. I don't know, they've got like 14 different renderers nowadays. Bevy, you can just rip out whatever you want throw in whatever you like in this place if you really want to. And the community member also decided to respond. Has anybody used Love 2D before? Did you like it? It's sort of like Love 2D in that it is code first. And like he said, the engine code looks like user code, and it's also one of the few engines written in Rust, which, you know, gives it a heads up. Gives it a bit of a leg up on people who like Rust. So, what is an entity component system? An ECS is composed of three main parts: entities, components, and systems. Pretty easy etymology. Now, an entity seems like a complex thing. It's not. It's two numbers, basically. It's an ID and a generation, so that we can reuse IDs without running out of IDs eventually. And those IDs are basically indexes to lists of components. And components, just throw them onto entities willy-nilly. They can contain data, but they can also be just markers if you want. So if you want a way to, pull a specific entity out, just throw a marker component on it. Pull it back out using marker component. And systems operate on the data components, on the data in components in a highly linear fashion that respects cache locality. Now, there is one metric of computer performance that has not changed in 25 years. Does anybody know that? Anybody know what it is? It is the time to first byte from memory. It has been 10 nanoseconds, give or take, since 1998. And we have adapted to that by putting 96 megabyte level 3 caches on our CPUs. And what ECS does, instead of jumping around the heap, going object to object, and then running the method on it, it goes, here's an array, here's what we're doing to it, and it screams through it, basically in a linear fashion. And it does this in a way that, so the processor could just keep pulling cache line after cache line after cache line. And it goes incredibly fast. It's a pity we couldn't get the thing working because I have a little demo of the Bevy mark where it's throwing around 100,000 different sprites with 60 frames a second, no sweat. So yeah, it's practically a simplified in-memory database. So this is Bevy, the simplest possible thing you can get. We derive a component on a regular struct. The system is a regular Rust function, and we basically say what we want. So components, Rust type, regular Rust types, and just derive with macro functions. So dependency injection is what we call Bevy magic, and it lets you put the queries in the function signature, and it gives you that data from the ECS. And what that basically lets you do is you let the engine know ahead of time what you need, so the engine then does all the scheduling for free, because you've just told it what you want and whether you want to alter that data or not. Because a million people can read the same data. The only limitation you have is you only want one person altering the data at any one time. And if you say, I want to alter all the transforms on a bunch of entities, it'll say, okay, well, I won't run anything else that looks at transforms during this period. And it does that all for you. And it spins up all the jobs and everything like that. You don't have to deal with the job system, you just make regular function that works. So entities you spawn them through basically command builder. And you just pull that into your system, and you say commands.spawn, commands.insert. That's all you do. And you can take components and assemble them into bundles, and use it to make your insertion easier. And they all have sensible defaults. So you just say, like if you want to create a sprite, it basically, you have a sprite component, you have a transform component, you have a global transform, you have a texture that it uses for the sprite, whether it's visible or not, and whether it's included by something else. And you only have to really care about transforming the handle, because everything else it does it for you with the default method. Oh. Sorry, the full name went everything, because I read this in Explorer to do it. This is a real Bevy system. I just pulled it straight out of the little project I'm working on. And all it is an asset loader. And you can see here where we basically turned it into a plugin, and it adds itself to the Bevy app, and it says, for everything starts up, we're going to run this load asset system. Load asset system pulls in the commands to, do whatever it needs to. In this case, it's going to insert resources. It pulls in the asset server so that it can asynchronously load whatever assets it needs to. And it pulls in the texture atlas so that you can, take a sprite sheet and turn it into something that Bevy can use with a sprite. And yeah, then we write the code for it. And then at the end, we insert it into the ECS, and Bob's your uncle, you have an asset loader. So yeah, everything we need, we just stick it on the function signature, it does all the parallelism automatically. Everything in Bevy is written just like this. Everything is a plugin, and they all eat their own dog food. So what does this enable? You get a parallel job system for free. Like I said, you get multi-platform for free because you're using WGP on the background as the backend. It'll do whatever you want. DX12, Vulkan, Metal, doesn't care. It'll do it as long as it stays within WebGPU, which means you don't get ray tracing. But for now, that's not exactly a bad thing. You get Web almost for free because it can target WebGL and it can target WebGPU. You can deploy to WASM, and some WASM restrictions do apply. Like WASM is still only single-threaded, which is the bane of everybody's existence because it makes it really difficult to do stuff in parallel where you really want to do it in parallel. So if you have something like a task where you set off a long-running computation, it can't just spawn it off on a different worker thread, and you'll have a bad time when you do some A-star pathfinding on a task, and it turns out it blocks your render for 120 milliseconds while it works it out. So if you are thinking of going down this road, I have some tips for you. ECS is a tool, not a religion. The ultimate use for this tool is throwing around tens or hundreds of thousands of entities at once. This is an invention born of necessity because we just don't have the DRAM IOPS anymore. So we make it cache friendly so that we can just rip through it. And it works. Don't try and shoehorn unsuitable logic into an ECS. ECS is about cache locality and crunching through stuff as a giant array. If you're doing stuff that needs spatial locality, for instance, anything with a tile map, do not be afraid to use another data structure and put it into the ECS as a resource that you can pull back out. So you don't need to worry about, whether you're using the ECS properly. Just do whatever you feel like. Start small. Make Pong first. And also, Rust has this really neat thing where they have example folders in most repos for most crates. Bevy is one of them as well. Most of the Bevy plugins that you'll use will have examples that have basically, how to use a boilerplate code that you can just basically copy and paste and have it work almost instantaneously. Docs.rs is your best friend. This thing is magic. One of the other great things about the Rust ecosystem is it has a pretty much standardized docs format and everybody uses it. So you can go into a struct and look for all the methods it has and find what you're looking for pretty easily. It's absolutely brilliant. Some guy was coming in with, he's like, because Rust is strongly typed, so if you haven't dealt with that before, welcome to... He was trying to multiply a transform, which is a vec3 by a affine matrix, And usually what you do is just extend the vec3 into a quaternion by adding a 0 and then multiplying it by the matrix. But the map library already had a function there to do it, and it was pretty trivial to look it up on docs.rs because all you had to do was look for matrix 4 and find out how to turn it into a vec3 or multiply it by vec3. And it makes it really easy. Bevy Discord is a great place. It is there, and it would love for you to drop by if you do end up going there, if you end up going down this road. So if you want to get started, bevyengine.org, there's a GitHub repo, and Discord. And does anybody have any questions about Bevy Rust? Yep.
I have more questions.
Sure.
Does Bevy have a GUI, and what kind of licensing does it have?
The Bevy editor is soon TM. Pardon?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, we can't
Oh,
hear his
sorry.
question.
Does Bevy have an editor UI? It has a very, very basic one just slapped together on eGUI. The Bevy editor is soon TM in that Fusion technology has always been 20 years away. The lead developer, Cart, has said he wants to try and make it a priority over the next 12 to 18 months, which also means if you're opinionated about these things or want to, have a go at helping determine the future or, make sure they don't fall down into any pitfalls that piss you off on other engines, they'll be more than amenable to comments and criticism.
What kind of licensing does it have? What is it? As long as specific license that's available to it, can we download it? Use it?
Oh, yeah, sorry, license. It's all MIT. You can use it in commercial projects, no worries.
All right, that's gonna wrap it up for us tonight. Thank you again, everyone, for coming out. Like I said, next month we're going to be running a demo night, same place, September 19th. Did I say the date? September 19th, 7 o'clock, right here. Bring your games, bring what you're working on, show it off, get some feedback, hang out, and that's gonna do it for us tonight. We have the space till 10, about an hour from now. So I don't know. I'll be hanging out. Let's hang out, chit chat, and see you all next time.
Thanks for organizing.
Woo! Thank you. Also, thank you to all of our speakers. Round of applause for Jake, going to your laptop. Thank you for bearing with us with our technical issues. For the demo night, bring your own hardware. There's power. We'll have power and Wi-Fi, but we can't provide it television. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Also, thank you, Chris, for